Hello everyone, welcome to this panel called Animation Across the MLP Fandom, which will focus more on our showcases, influences, and a lot to show with our projects, and even give some advice from us, the 5 animators here. So let's all begin. Absolutely.
Don't you want to introduce yourself?
So let's start with, you can introduce ourselves. So my name is ACLP Films. So if you're at the opening ceremony, sorry if I didn't mention my name, but I'm ACLP Films. I mostly do source filmmaker animations for mostly using the G4 and G5 characters. I've been doing that for like around 3 years. I started my YouTube channel for during COVID. That's when I had to do not to be bored, just go on the computer and just animate. So I don't have to I just wanted to do something. So yeah, I've been using it, Source Filmmaker, and the more I've been using it, the more I actually learn from using the software itself. So yeah, I also do like graphic design, illustration stuff for like the posters, and even I also do photography for like 10 years too, for most of those. Yep.
So I'm Tirut, I'm a Toon Boom and Blender animator. I'm also a studio journalist in the animation industry, so I'll try to make some of the knowledge I got from that in my animations. I've worked on projects like Missing Out, The Beginning of Harmony, The False Sunset Shimmer, Luna's Determination, and Good Morning Baltimore. I really like doing 2D characters blending with immersive 3D environments, trying to make it feel like you're looking inside a painting. And I usually make more sad animations, but I like trying comedy with once in a while. So that is me.
Alright, I'm Lyle Lemur. You may know me for my comic book work, but I also do storyboards, so I do a lot of the more pre-production side of animation. So I'm gonna share some stuff with my work from when I was on the Midnight Mares. I hope to be back on the Midnight Mares when they pick up the production again. But that's me, Lyle Lemur, so I'm gonna pass it off.
My name is Luximus. I am not that well known of a pony animator, although my upbringing in animation came from the pony fandom. I mostly do all-around work in indie projects all over YouTube. I've done a few music videos for CG5. I have posted my own senior thesis film that I'll be showing to you guys today. And I'm a recent graduate from UW South in Wisconsin over 2D animation, and I want to go more into indie projects such as stuff like Hell of Boss, Lackadaisy, the whole gig, the indie animation gig on YouTube. That's the kind of thing that I'm doing.
My name is Silver Screen. I'm going to be odd one out on this panel because I am not an artist. I cannot draw word anything, but so I'm on this panel. I'm directing a Fallout of Vestria animated series. So over the course of starting that production and directing it over the course of about the last year and a half, I've learned a lot about the animation process, and so I have a lot of insight to share, mostly about that project.
So I would like to say is, we all do the animation. Most of us have been doing animation stuff. So for what we can start here first, we can actually showcase one of our projects or one of our examples of our projects, which for every individuals here, so we can show off. So let's all start with one of my videos I use for source from. Alright. So usually it's just I started to do something new. Whenever it comes to my videos, I have to create something new instead of something that has already been done. Sometimes when you repeat like making the same content stuff as I did with the POV videos. Yeah, I usually have to do something new and try something that you haven't done. You know, the same thing over and over again when it comes to creating a story and creating a script and stuff. So here's one of my favorites. Maybe.
Hi there, it's me, Fluttershy. I was just thinking, have you ever wondered why I'm the cutest pony in all of Equestria? Well, I have, and I think it's because of my adorable little face and my soft, fluffy mane.
It's all so cute!
But don't just take my word for it. I was recently featured on a website called TheTopTens.com, and I was voted as the #1 cutest My Little Pony character. Can you believe it? I'm so honored. But I have to admit, it's not all about my looks. It's also about my kind and gentle nature. I always try to help my friends and be there for them. I guess that makes me more cuter than Rainbow Dash. Oh wait, no, I can't compare who's cute because every pony in Equestria is cute and adorable. Also, don't tell Dashie I said that. Hi there.
So, another one I just made recently, which is Misty. We're very glad that she was here earlier. This is just right after after the season chapter 4 was
I
released.
can't continue down this path any longer. I've grown tired of carrying out Opalin's malicious deeds. Being a pawn in a web of darkness, it weighs heavily on my conscience, and I can no longer bear the guilt. I've been trapped, feeling like a failure at every turn. Opalin's manipulations have held me captive, making me do things I never wanted to do, but I can't deny it any longer. It's time to break free from her control. For too long, I've been living a life of deception and evil, forced to commit acts of espionage, conspiracy, stalking, and attempted theft. Opalin's thirst for power has driven her to manipulate me, to capture Sparky and hurt my friends, but I've come to realize that I can't continue down this destructive path. I'd rather live without a cutie mark forever than live as a pony who can always do the wrong thing. I've been waiting for years, even decades, to finally get my cutie mark, but not with these nefarious deeds. I yearn to obtain it by saving the friends I've made, by becoming a force of good and bringing hope to Equestria. I can't continue to be a pawn in your wicked game. I've seen the damage caused by your lust for power, Opaline, and I won't be a part of it any longer. I realize that true strength lies in standing against you, with me siding with Sunny Star's younger friends. I'm more weary of being a pawn in Opalin's schemes. Sunny and her friends have shown me the true meaning of friendship, and I can no longer be their foe. My heart yearns for freedom, for a life where I'm not controlled by fear and manipulation. I've endured insults and abuse from my adopted mother, feeling small and insignificant in her presence. However, true happiness awaits me when I'm surrounded by the warmth and support of Sunny and friends. It's time for me to cast aside the darkness and embrace the light. I've held on to the hope of finding my own humor, acts of kindness and bravery. As I stand here, I finally understand. It was never about the mark itself, but the journey and the friendships that were waiting for me. I've been haunted by my past actions, but I'm ready to make amends and redeem myself. I won't let fear hold me back any longer. Together with Sunny and our friends, we will restore harmony to Equestria and create a future where kindness and friendship reign. And today, I'm proud to declare that I have found my true purpose and attained my cutie mark, symbolizing the strength of friendship and the power of redemption. Please help me find the light again. I hope that I can defeat the darkness and bring hope and harmony back to me. I'm ready to embrace the true meaning of friendship and find my true self. Please save me.
This is when I actually, after watching chapter 4, I ended up having Misty as my favorite character after that. And yes, when it comes to the animations like this, it's about timing and it's about setting up a schedule and having your self-care. So when it comes to making like this, I usually have to prioritize my health, my mental health, and all, yeah, just to do stuff when you want to animate. And yes, you have to research, or you have to do a lot of research about before you actually put something on the script, and also on what the scene would look like. So yeah.
So you don't have my preview? Oh, okay. So yeah, there should be a folder called preview that I
Yeah, let's see this one. Yeah. So this is a preview for my next animated project. I'm not revealing the title yet. Most people will see a teaser. The first part has been fully rendered and composited. The rest is still OpenGL previews. I wanted to get the whole thing done in time, but I had other things to work on the project at the same time. It's a pretty ambitious animated project that should be around 11 to 12 minutes long. Should be around the same level of complexity as Missing Out. I won't say much more. I want the teaser to say most of it, so I hope you enjoy it.
Just got word from the Caramel Weather Patrol. This weather wasn't put in their schedule. We might be under attack. We have to contact Twilight and our friends right now. This isn't working. If I may offer a suggestion. Miss Muppets, the princess requires your service.
I may have flipped it a few frames too late, but I hope you're excited for it.
Yeah, I have a slideshow. So, yeah, I want to talk about my work on the Midnight Mares. I don't know if anybody is excited about the Midnight Mares or have heard about the Midnight Mares project. It's been a long-going project. I've been honored to work on it. I started work on it around late 2020 into 2021, and I did a few storyboards for it. And it was a collaborative effort because I worked with a few other artists on this. Yeah, these are not my initial boards, but I wanted to talk about a little bit about the pre-production side of animation, because animation is a very extensive and it can be a very time-consuming endeavor. Even a very short animation can take a very long time to produce. So typically, like in a big production too, we would want to do like a storyboard and break it down and to think what is the best way to tell the story, how to get the characters across, how to communicate our message to the audiences through the storyboard. And these are like the very first ones. The first one was done by my colleague, Anton St. Just, and she did these ones. If you saw the trailer for Midnight Mares, and we'll probably play that just a little bit later. It's been played on YouTube a bit, but this was how it was initially going to go out here. And it hasn't really changed that much. Go to the next slide, please. But one thing I want to point out here, and this is where I came in, because I did a lot of storyboards for the end of the production. We came back to this scene right here, where her toys like fall off the balcony. And she's like saying, oh, Mom, you know, this is like reason number 47 why my magic doesn't work here. And she like says, just look how great my things, and she's like, pause because they've gotten out of control and they fall off the thing. But I want to just point out, like in the storyboards right now, on, I think on the audience, on your left side, you can see Daybreak, and she just kind of watches the toys just tumble off the side. And it's like, I thought, and we were talking, it's like, yeah, it kind of makes her look kind of like really dumb or either very like mean a little bit. So we decided to change it up because, next slide, please, sorry. Thank you so much.
Oh, shoot, I did download it on my computer.
Thank goodness, thank you so much for
Wait,
doing
did I
that.
actually check on my flash drive? Transferred it? Oh, no. Which? We're live.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, sorry to be so much trouble, you guys. But yeah. Let's fast forward just a little bit. These are from like 2014. Yes, this project has been a long time coming. Okay, so right here. Yep. But this is the scene that we worked on.
It's like everything is a symphony of four. About not activating the mentality on this side. You have much stronger this way. I just want to be a normal bear. If putting power without this contraption attached to me. Why this thing makes me look like a clown now. It's time to put away your toys. Mom, do I have to? I'm still trying to make them more realistic. I've almost perfected them. But every time I activate my medallion, they go crazy, so there's reason number 47 why I don't want to activate it here. Just look at how great they look.
We can pause right there and go down to the rest. It is on YouTube too, the thing. Is it possible to go back later on? I hate to like jump around, but for the sake of time.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, this needs a little creativity. Sometimes you know, problem solving. That's how we do it.
Well, at least I can get mine.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, yeah, Minty, thank you for downloading these. Helped out immensely. Yeah. So yeah, that part where the toys are running through their legs, that was my, that was the part that I added. So, not to say like that was, it's a team effort, even with among storyboard artists, where we'll come and we'll put a new idea in. So we did the one. At first, they were going to be riding on the running around on the side. It's just a little thing like that, just to show Nightfall kind of has a fall from grace in this series, and we kind of wanted to show that was on her own hubris a little bit. That they, when she says crazy, they kind of do their own thing. So it's a little bit of a foreshadowing, and we thought it would be better, like she's talking to her mom, and no one's paying attention to the toys, so we see it from the toys angle. And it kind of helps save Daybreak's like demeanor too, so that the audience doesn't say, well, like she's kind of a terrible parent, you know, kind of thing like that, you know. So, all right, well, I have some other things on the slideshow.
I had a quick question. You said that you made that change. Was that a part of like the storyboard process? Like, did you change that during the storyboard, or did you change it like later when you were in the animation?
This was during the storyboard phase, and what was good, it took more time, But we had a meeting about like the initial animatic, like we just took those pictures, ran them through an animatic with the voice actresses and actors like talking the lines. And then we were looking through it and we were just saying things like we could change this, we could change that. A lot of what we did on the Midnight Mares, it's all been storyboard, the pilot. It's just that was the section that we got animated. And a lot of our animatics are still in the first pass. I would like to revisit it when we go back and like maybe finesse and change it up. I mean, I feel like it helps, like going through a storyboard with several revisions, and it also saves the animators a lot of work and time too.
Definitely.
Yeah, by doing it. So these are just like the slides of what you just saw there, and we just click through it. And that's kind of how we block it out, and just having the focus on their faces rather than it all on the balcony, and then it continues on from, and Tom did it, and that was the scene there, next slide. And then also, this was Nightfall's bedroom, and with Anton, we collaborated on it. If you can see on the corner, I tried to get in, we designed her, bedroom. I tried to get in, fly spray as, a perfume on the counter, as a little joke, and, a hoof pick, and, a brush, for real-life horses. But, no one wanted that in there, so it was just, a suggestion. We both worked on it. Next slide, I believe, is then kind of the next pass that we went through. Because I did also backgrounds once we did enough storyboards and started working on scene 2 in earnest. We were making backgrounds. So this was what Anton did here on this one, just to show the process. And then next one. And then this was the final background. She was incredible. Honestly, I wish she was one of our leads on this. But she was great to work with. I'm honored to. I made a, London Calling, I just put in jokes, really. I helped her make the jokes in this thing, and the crying teenage pony in there. So kind of selling Nightfall's angsty teen, kind of look to her. Next slide. And then these were some backgrounds we did to, they have a fountain out in their main town, and just kind of different staging and stuff that we're thinking of. Just a lot of concept art. Next slide. Some of these have not been shown before, but this is kind of the process. I worked on this background here for the balcony. This was actually sectioned out, and Yoshi Greenwater was our animator. He did a fantastic job on this. Next slide. Just more pretty. These backgrounds too. They're nice. I have them on my website too, so it was enjoyable. Now, another scene from this hasn't been shown before, so can't spoil anything though. This is something I worked on, some more concepts that I worked on for the Midnight Mares, so they ended up changing, they didn't go with this. I did like this Midnight Mass thing, I really dug it, and Yan was our producer, and he's we need some solar panels on there. I'm I'll add some solar panels to the sign. So sometimes, animation can be great because you can do little things you design a fake sign out in a weird wasteland thing. So I wonder what that's all about. Okay, and next slide. And these are also for later on in the thing. This is just a little thing where Nightfall is shot out of a little fountain. The story does get pretty involved, and so have one where there's a joke where she's just spitting water out on her mom, Daybreak's hoof, and she's I can't believe your power. So I've never seen such power before. Is basically what she says in it, and then she's I wasn't wearing my medallion when I did it, and then next slide. Here, and then in the script, because when you're given the storyboards, I was the very first, this is the very first draft of the storyboard, so I would like to change this. Typically you don't go with your first draft of storyboards, but this was just to give us an idea, where to go, and then from there you kind of massage it and you kind of come up with a film. And it called for her to fall into the fountain. So I had her bring a towel out, and she trips on the towel that falls off, Nightfall shakes her head, mane, towel falls on the floor, she trips over it. There's a moment of silence, because it's kind of weird, but I wanted to make it kind of a funny thing too, where she's just staring at her wet, and she's that's impossible, sweetheart, that doesn't happen. That little exchange, and it's kind of cool to Good, so, yeah, next slide, so we're not running through too much time. Another slide here with the bullies, and yeah, actually, let's just keep going and then some more, and oh, yeah, next one, sorry. Okay, these links probably don't work, but Midnight Mirrors is on Patreon, your social media, and just talking about it with friends, because really, the more that people know about it, the better. So, yeah, please spread the word on it. And, yeah, we can go on. That's this. I don't want to take up too much time. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have a presentation or like a big speech or anything. But I do have my thesis that I have completed. That I did show off like a rough draft to at FabsCon. If any of you were at FabsCon for this particular event, I know you were. You hosted it. Was anybody at HarmonyCon at my panel? Not Harmony, sorry. Winnie City at my panel. Okay, so then you guys are seeing this for your first time. Great. Before we go though, how many of you have had an idea, or at least wanted your characters, or whatever OCD it had, wanted it to be like animated into their own shorts? Right? See? Yeah. Well, some of us can do that. And a lot of us can do that with the willpower of being an animator, right? It's just a lot of, patience, a lot of time, and a lot of dedication toward it. The only reason why, one of the biggest reasons why I was able to complete this one was because this was a senior project. This was timed. This had a deadline, and that really helped with like the fortitude of actually making the thing. And I'm really proud of how it turned out. You can play it now. sound guys that helped me out with it. I had a sound guy and a music guy actually make the sound for it. I just did the whole animation of it. But yeah, that was my senior thesis project, and I was really happy with it.
All right, so I sent a picture to the Discord. So I do have animation to share, but I'm not going to share it here because I'm going to save it for, we are going to have a Fallout Equestria animated series panel that is going to be tomorrow. So if you
you want to come and see our little preview that we have so far of the completed animation that we have so far for the episode, come see that. I think it's at, I can't remember. Yeah, X time. But yeah, so I figured for this panel I would just talk about something that is not often talked about or really even thought about, and that is art design. A lot of people take the look and feel of animation kind of for granted. You don't realize how much effort and thought is put into the way that the characters look, the way that you want them to look to create whatever tone or emotion out of it, or whatever like tone of the animation is. You want the art to sort of reflect that tone. So you're not getting like tonal whiplash. When it comes to Fallout Equestria, I don't know how familiar everyone is with it, but in the past, visual sort of like representations of it have sort of clashed with the Fallout-ness of it has clashed with the My Little Pony-ness of it, because it's quite a mature work. It's a very mature theme and tone, and that really clashes with like the cutesy sort of look of My Little Pony. And so when it comes to the art design that we created for this series, the thoughts that we put into it were, well, we wanted it to sort of resemble that cute style of My Little Pony, you know, the thing that we're all here for, that we love so much about the series, but also to sort of give it some harder edge to it, so that when the mature themes of the series come into play, then it doesn't feel like tonal whiplash. Using sort of like more muted colors rather than the brighter pastel colors of the show will sort of fit in with like the darker setting. And yeah, those are kind of the thoughts that we put into the art design. I'm sure all of us on this panel can sort of could talk at any length about the amount of like thought that you put into just like the look and the feel and the tone of like your works, like especially into wanting to make your animations look like a painting, like you said earlier. Like there's a lot of thought and effort that goes into that sort of thing.
One of the aspects I remember the most that I really wanted to strike with Luna's determination was the painting aspect, but also the way that I framed shots. I really wanted all the shots to, it was mostly inspired by Renaissance paintings, so all of them relied a lot on single point perspective. And as it turned out, it really helped to make it feel more historical. Just the idea that you look at larger-than-life events from point of view of Princess Luna looking back at herself. And I realized also that single-point perspective is also a great tool for shot compositions, because you don't have to worry too much about where to put your characters. You have converging lines that directly point to where to look at, and you could just put the character right in the middle. And you could also rely on the fact that people read from left to right, so you put the character who tries to pass from one to the other, like that. So you had Princess Luna on the left, the Starswirl on the right, for all the shots where they were together. And the one moment where Starswirl is gone, you can just see that the whole balance is upset. You have Luna on her side, she looks, and you just see full, complete emptiness on the side. Just by doing that, it feels like you're missing out something, and I felt it really helped with the theme of loss and the idea of the struggle of missing a piece of yourself once someone else who helped you grow is gone. And the fact that I had the balance offset really helped. It also really helped because Luna is blue and all the backgrounds were blue. So Starswirl with his bright gold bells just had a lot of punch. He added a lot of warmth to the picture. So that just with blue also with depression. So the one color went out of it. So the final scene with the sun finally rises and you finally get out of the blue and Luna feels finally in a better place. It really helped. If I just stay with the bright color of the show, I feel like it would feel show accurate, but I feel show accuracy is not what's the most important? I feel is more, I'd rather have something that's better to itself than try to adhere to standards of a show that, you know, we already like shows. We don't really need more of the exact same. We can try new things, which is actually what happened with Fallout Equestria. A lot of people would have thought that the idea of combining Fallout with MLP is quite ridiculous, and they made it work, which I thought was pretty impressive. And also why I think it's really interesting for fan animators to actually come up with new techniques to create new animation styles that we can really actually show. Because it's also part of our own identity, like the way that I combine 2D and 3D animation together to make something that feels more immersive. I can actually play with light and shadows a lot more. And that's my take on it. I've seen other animators who have more interesting things. I'm taking like our Budina, who does 3D animation. His camera work is just spot on. I've been jealous of his work on that front. And I get to learn a bit from his techniques, and I assume other animators get to learn from the things I do. And it's really good to be together with the fandom to collaborate on a lot of aspects like that, and really see their own vision, their own ideas, and really the uniqueness of our approaches. So,
yeah, uniqueness, I feel like definitely plays a big part in a lot of artists' works, wanting to like distinguish your like style from those that came before it. It's one of the things that actually I thought about during the pre-production of the Fallout Equestria series was, do we go with something like Source Filmmaker? There's a lot of models for the characters of Fallout Equestria already, a lot of settings and stuff that we could use and would potentially cut down on like animation time, but also a lot of Source Filmmaker content already exists of like Fallout Equestria, and if you just use the models that everyone else uses, then you're not really setting yourself apart from those other things, and we really wanted to create like a more unique sort of feeling for the series.
Yeah, so that's, thank you, Silver Screen and the team. The only thing I would like to ask is how did we all get into animation? What makes us feel like we wanted to create these My Little Pony contents for everyone to show in the growing community? So, yeah. Why did I got into animations? It's just that when COVID hit in 2020, I had nothing to do with it, and I only had nothing left on at all. I just wanted to do the Source Filmmaker because I heard that Source Filmmaker for me would be like one of my first animation software I would use. When it comes to doing the software, it may be hard at first. The interface and everything would be will be confusing, but when you get to learn it over again, then you can get it mastered. I was able to learn from YouTube, which I mostly got it from Argo's tutorials. So yeah, shout out to Argo. So that's how I got into the Source Filmmaker. And yes, I had to do a lot of like one of the keyframes when I used using Source Filmmaker, pointing keyframes where, and also they have the animations already provided, like Pony SFM, which can also be used for when you wanted the characters to walk or sit or stand and up. So yeah, one of those. And then when it comes to the ideas or how I did the creative ideas, I always search for videos on YouTube to make sure there's something that has never been made yet. Like, wait, so like they haven't animated this, they haven't animated that. I search anything that hasn't been that popular that much. One of the things that made me want to do the cheering up video, which that's one of the things I wanted to. You can want it to help people, but there are times that you have to. Because I had to do research. Like what I said, you have to do a lot of research when you have to do the script, making you understand the scene, making sure that it makes sense to the viewers. And one of those. And then I always get that in my vision So usually sometimes I use a storyboard, but I always come up with my vision or how I see in the script for everything in one of those. And yeah, pretty much.
So my journey with animation was it had a really weird start back in the days when I saw cartoons on TV and I thought, well, I'd like to do something like that. My dad hooked me up he had a very thick pad, and the only thing that could be used to make animation was PowerPoint, and I could just use that slide transitions and transition effects. The very first animation I did had the most compelling stories ever. It was about a guy learning about a race. Then he entered it, and then he won. And I did try playing with more stop motion with PowerPoint, just moving shapes until my dad, as he was learning more about web development, and around the time Flash was still used for that. He had a very thick book, around that thick, about Flash. And with that book came a disc with a demo of Flash that I could use, and I realized at that point, Flash is really cool. I could actually use tweens, I could actually move things around it. And at that time, I really didn't know what to do, so I started making things with sprites, basically pictures from video games, to try to make them in motion, to try to tell stories, until around 2012, when I discovered My Little Pony, and I discovered it was animated in Flash, I realized this is something I could do, and then I realized that I actually had to learn how to do it properly. And there was a few tutorials from Rent Udet. He had a YouTube series where he talked a bit about things. For example, how to do the magic effect that the unicorns use to levitate objects, how to do lip sync, yeah. Those were incredibly, those were amazing tools for me to learn how the show worked. And they didn't cover everything, so I also did some trial and error. And while doing trial and error, I just realized I'd like to find out my own style until I realized I wanted to play more with shadows and light, because I relied on the theatricality of the way you can play with light sources on ponies. And as it turns out, it's just incredible what we've seen with the show actually does that. Try to do full dramatic lighting, it's just incredible. And I thought, well, I want to do that. And for a couple of years, I kept playing with Flash and trying to push the limits. And I was both convinced by Piquet Petey and no cartoonist to move to Toon Boom. Which was pretty tough because there was not a lot of tools to learn how to use Toon Boom, and the ones that were there didn't really fit with my style, so it was a lot of trial and error. And I realized at some point that since I was at that point, I moved to a 3D animation school where they taught 3D design and animation. And I realized I can try to use Toon Boom as a 3D animation software by using pegs to try to move all the pieces together and use all the things that I can do with 2D animation to make it feel good on the screen. And I just realized later that since it was set in 3D, I could actually make 3D environments of large scale and actually make them fit together. And when I realized that, I felt like a click in my head, like I felt like something, a part of me just unlocked. And I felt accomplished. I felt like I could finally show my vision on the screen. And it felt really good.
Well, a funny story actually. I was an aspiring animator when I was like in high school. I actually did, it's funny because I lived out in the middle of nowhere in Idaho and grew up there. And I built a light box from pallet boards and like some plexiglass from Home Depot. And then like put a light bulb, like, just your standard like nighttime light bulb, and made like a really crude like light box with like, those binder clippers things. I'm like, man, I can do that. And I made like really terrible animations. One of them was on YouTube, and it was before YouTube was bought by Google. and I forgot my password, so it's like locked forever. So I can't get it, but I can find it maybe. It's about a little like gremlin creature that gets like, it's kind of a sad story because but I kind of have a morbid like sense of humor sometimes. But I did do the Semantic School of Art and Design, and I wanted to go into animation so bad. And I did do like some 3D animation, and I was, to be honest, really terrible at it. But I've really found my love in like doing like traditional art and like 2D stuff. And I'm like, I really love doing comics, like silly little comics and telling stories was my passion. So I kind of found my way into animation again, like not in an indirect way. It kind of circled all back. So, but yeah, there's a lot of disciplines in animation I just put out there. Like, not every single step of them is important. Like, it's such a broad, when we say animation, it's such a broad topic. There's so many people involved, so many creative visions in it, that, yeah, it's very inspiring for, like, even anyway, like, just telling the story, too. Like, even if you just put it on paper, that's a powerful thing. But, yeah, that's kind of, in a way, how I got into it. I'll hand it off to you. What's this?
My turn. Okay. You have to understand, I'm young. So when I got introduced to MLP, it was when I was 13 years old. But before then, you guys remember who Ego Raptor is? Aaron from Game Grumps? Yeah. So I saw him animating Pikachu get hit in the knee. And I thought, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to do that. So that's how it started. And I didn't really have a way into animation until I got into Pony Fandom, where I discovered the double rainbow tutorials, where Zach like puts up a whole smiley face tutorial thing about how to use the assets in Flash, and you know the tweeting stuff, the technical terms with animation, you know, and all that thing. And I was able to actually like get in with the program and the tools because my mom saw that I wanted to do animation. She was like, here, have my student edition of Adobe and just go nuts. So, so I started off in Flash. But if I were to give like advice to people who want to start animating or like want to try and have any means into actually getting into animation, try and find free stuff or start with things that you know, like Flip a Clip or Blender are free things that you can try your skills out on. If you do want to get your hands on like a professional program, try and find either Adobe Animate or Toon Boom or even Clip Studio, because those programs, especially for 2D animations, are really cool. If you want to do 3D, then Blender and Maya are your go-to stuff. And really just start with what you know, go with a bunch of tutorials, find stuff online. It's very easy to find, you know, certain tutorials. Harry Partridge has a whole playlist of, you know, tutorials on how to animate in a 2D fashion. And yeah, that's it, I guess.
So I've always, it wasn't me. So I've always really been interested in movies, personally, in storytelling, stuff like that. Like I said, I can't draw myself, but so I honed my writing instead. I graduated with a writing degree and a minor in film studies, so if I could give any advice to those out there who also, like me, can't draw or animate, but really are inspired by things like that to create, I would say just go out there and meet people, you know? If you have an idea that you really care about and are really passionate about, and you want to share it with people, I'm sure that someone out there would be more than happy to animate it, to work with you on creating that vision that you have. It just takes passion, you know, for what you're doing. got this project started, this Fall Out Equestria project that I'm working on, all I started with was a script and an idea for a couple ideas on how we could animate it. Mostly thanks to the past projects that didn't really go so well. Mostly I have a lot of hindsight into how to sort of like get around those issues that those ones were kind of plagued with. But yeah, I had a script and some ideas for animation and a lot of tenacity. Where I just went around to every Discord server and every fan community basically, and was like, hey, are there any artists that want to help me animate Fall Out Equestria? And most people were like, that'll never work, or you're never going to get, oh, you don't have a budget. No artist worth their salt is going to work for free. You're kidding yourself. But a few people here and there were interested, and it was thanks to those couple of people who were passionate about seeing that vision come true that now we've grown I've grown this my project and the size of my team to the point where we can really start to put out actual animation. So it's super cool. I'm super grateful to be in that position. But yeah, all it takes is passion, not giving up, and the magic of friendship.
And yes, there are a lot of animators and artists that are out there doing some commissions. So yeah, maybe I guess both of you are doing commissions. Maybe you can talk about that.
Not animal commissions.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't.
I have a few. No, I'm being hired to do indie stuff. It's like commission work, but it's with a contract. You know, commission work is more just like, hey, pay me and I'll do this, right? Where it's a lot of illustrated stuff, animations. Like most of the time, if you get an animated commission, it's for like a Twitch emote or some Twitch thing, streamer thing that people want. Otherwise, if you get like some bigger project that involves some NDAs and a team. That's more than just being a commission, I guess.
Actually, should we quickly talk about NDAs, because I think a lot of people kind of misunderstand how important NDAs are.
Yeah.
When you say you can't talk about anything about the project, that means nothing at all, not even hints. Otherwise, you could get blacklisted. And of course, one of the things that you have to consider is that if another studio asks you about because they want to hire you, and they basically ask you, try to convince you to spill the beans on another project. That's a terrible way to convince the new studio, because it's not just a competition where you think that they will be able to get know more about another studio. It's that it's going to reveal yourself to be untrustworthy. So if you can spill the beans about another studio, what will say? Then you won't spill the beans about the new studio, which is very dangerous because a lot of productions rely on a lot of trust. You have massive, incredible, for example, the Malaconian New Generation, the amount of money that went into it was pretty big, and Hasbro could not rely on someone else just leaking the whole thing. And the amount of people that you see in the script, the credits, that's a massive amount of people who had to keep their lips shut about everything about the project. Not just to members of the public, but also their own project and the governments. And when I say things can get leaked very quickly, they can. It's incredible. You can just say one tiny thing to someone, and it will just domino to everybody else. If the person just spreads it across, it's pretty bad. So NDAs have a reason to be. You sign it. I wouldn't say you sign it with your own blood, but sign it with your own reputation. You have to care about it. And you also have to respect people who are under NDAs. Like, you can't just try to push the person to reveal things or try to trick them to say things like that, because you not only risk the person's career, but you also risk the actual work. Even if you're a big fan of it, you could actually jeopardize the whole production just by trying to leak things out of it. And we've seen a couple of productions that have that problem. We've had some people just simply lose their jobs and blacklisted. Some productions simply losing lots of money because they had the work print leaked, and it turns out that people just looked at the work print and didn't bother looking at the years. So this is quite important, and even for fan projects, it's very important to keep a secret because it might not be an NDA, but it still has the spirit of it. You don't want to reveal something to other people and just ruin the release of our project. So.
Bottom line, NDA means shut up.
Alright, so we only have like 30 minutes, so we have enough time for our Q&A. So if you have any questions, we would like to answer. Right, we'd like to answer. Right.
You just raise your hand, Chuck.
Okay, yeah, so, like, I've been considering getting into, like, story animation, like, given how I'm still pretty new, it seems like a bit of a steep learning curve, especially with the price, like, is there any recommendation for someone who currently has, like, I'm mostly just going to use Flipnote, like, not Flipnote, whatever that DS animation system was. Okay, Flipnote. Like, give me a recommendation for, like, a really beginner's, like, animation tool.
What was it? Sorry? The last part you said?
Like, I mean, considering Toon Boom, but, like, it seems that I'm still, like, actually learning things. It seems like a bit of a steep, like, price for the learning curve, if that makes any sense. Like,
yeah, right. For especially like high quality softwares, it can definitely be a kind of a price wall, like keeping you from like really being able to use those kinds of tools. But Source Filmmaker is a really like easy option to like get into. Like even I've tried using Source Filmmaker to animate things. You have all of these like assets available to you that you don't have to like create or like license or anything. Like they're just there for you to be able to use, and you can practice essentially, like learning the basics, the fundamentals of animation, being able to practice storytelling in a visual sense. Like Source Filmmaker is such a useful tool for beginners.
and it can like help with like 2D animation too. Like,
For 2D, there's OpenToons, which was, if I recall, it was an animation software meant for Studio Ghibli, and they just made it open source, thus completely free. You do have Blender, which actually can do 2D animation. You have the Grease Pencil, which they improved a lot. They made a whole overall interface. And yeah, since it's technically in 3D space, you can actually apply shading effects to your drawings. You have, well, Blender is also an editing software, so you can actually take the clips to render the 2D sequences in those. It's better if you go with hand-drawn, but it's possible to actually build rigs of your pieces. It's getting better and better and better thanks to all the support. TV Paint, and one of the software that I was recommended that's not free but it's pretty cheap, there is Moho, which was known as Anime Studio back in the days. It's more beginner in terms of more user-friendly, but you can do fancier techniques. For example, if you want to do very complex 3D camera pans, you don't have those tools like Toon Boom, but Toon Boom has a very steep curve, and Toon Boom does have a student pricing. I think it's the highest, fanciest version of this for students is $21 a month. And I think all you need is a student ID, and you can register it for a subscription. And of course, if you would rather try it first, there's always a 21-day trial just to get a good idea if you like it or not. It's a really effective approach to learn that. And of course, if you want to try all of them, since they have trials, you can see which one connects to you personally. So, yeah, I recommend check around those software. OpenTunes might be a bit weird. I did have some problem trying it out, and I did see some people manage to actually do home rigs out of it that work pretty well. So it's definitely possible.
I'm gonna say, you remember the Die Young animation that Pop did years ago? That was done in TV Paint and Paint Tool Style.
Wait, what?
That was done in TV Paint. Yeah.
Yep.
But that didn't have rigs. That was just drawings upon drawings. That's what TV Paint is.
Right.
If you want to do rigs, then Blender is a better use for that, and that's free to download. TV Paint is more for like if you're really gonna go for 2D animation, you want to go frame by frame. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a frame by frame animator, and I'm like interested in like puppet animation, or rigs, but I don't know where to start. Like, what are good advice for puppet animation?
Well, okay. I started, like I said, with the double rainbow tutorials. Those are really easy to follow. Those are really easy to acquire and grab rigs for. If you can find pony rigs, just play around with them. Flash, if you have Flash or anything.
Or like say if I wanted to build my where would I start with that?
Oh, okay, so building flash rigs is quite interesting. Usually you go with the default pose, for example, front 3Q profile, and then you just do the turn on. What's quite interesting with those rigs is that you don't have to overthink too much how you will think of it as puppets, because those pieces will translate across the body in a way that you will use those pieces to actually shape a new shape of the character. So for example, if I were to make this pose up with my rig, for example, I might have to create a new piece for one of the legs, for example. So you might have to split apart some of the pieces. For example, the hooves, usually you have the leg simply at that angle, and if you want to have a pose where you have the characters, I think it's like bent like that. One of the things I thought at first when I was playing with Pony Creator, I thought that you actually had to create a hoof that actually had the articulations at those points. Turns out the show doesn't do that. They just have one specific one that's straightforward, and they have one bent, and they just switch between those two pieces. And the bent one has the actual articulations, and you just rotate it, and that's it. You have things, for example, blinks that they can just reuse all the time because no one will actually care if the blink is reusing them. You have the mounts where you start from the default pose. You have all the phonemes, the A, E, O, U, and all consonants. And you have that for the happy and the sad ones. And if you ever have a need for a custom pose, you can build one that you can then add it back to the rig. You'll have the ears where it's mostly just the same from most angles. You just have the material line that you keep for one of the angles. You'll end up reusing a lot of pieces between angles. I realized that my Pony rig, the main was the same for the profile in the front, and it didn't matter too much. You only have to care just how it looks in the profile of the front of the tree, just to see how you will have the default pose. But I do recommend to just stick with that pose because in the early days of Fandom, first animators to pick up a rig and try to animate. What they usually did is that they just kept the head rotated a bit, but they kept the most of the default pose, and it feels very static, it feels very flat. It's like in 3D when you have the character deposing, it's made like that because you don't want as little stretching and everything. I remember, actually, that's a good example. Dust Down, part of it is just because most of the people who were on it just were starting, which that is fair. At my beginning when I started, I didn't do that much either. They also built their animation using the double angle rig, and they used the default pose that they had for the double angle rig. One of the things I usually do whenever I have a rig naming, and the character just happens to stand there, what I would do, for example, is just try to offset the front of the body. You can play with the skew, just slightly angle it, For example, if you have a more assertive character, you can just scoot a bit forward. If you have a character who's stressed out, so you just have to look at the feel that the character is supposed to express, and just very subtly change it. And if you have a different character, you can also do that. And of course, the human body does only have a default position, so just adding some access to everything just really helps. If you have, for example, a walk cycle, people won't care too much because in the show you just reuse the same walk cycles all the time. So, but you can also add some flair, for example, by adding some animation to the tail to make it bounce around. You can, for example, shift your wings. If you have a Pegasus, just make it like the wings are lower than usual. You can even take multiple frames and just push the legs a bit farther away, and it really helps make the colors work better. And so the whole thing, and PKPD told me that at the panel, he was saying that you don't want to over-engineer your rig. You will mostly figure things out as you work on it. And you see that a lot with the show. If you look at season 1, season 2, you see a lot of pieces built for the rigs that appear only on those episodes, because they found out that they needed those pieces of the rigs as the work going on. So, and just put back those pieces back on those rig as the season ended. And this is an iterative approach. I had my first version of the Mare rig that I had. I realized that at some point I needed some walk cycles, and then I had to add trot cycles, which were really helpful. And at some point, someone realized that I was using a mask to try to have the mane behind the ear, but in front of the eyes, and you couldn't really have both. So you had a mask to cut it so it wouldn't appear behind the ear, and then you have a second piece that would appear in front of the eyes. And someone tried at some point to just move the mask that I had for those two pieces, because I didn't want just to cut out the mane, just to try to cut around the corner of the ear. And I realized at once I could just make a mask of the opposite shape of the ear, just to have always a mane that's technically above the eyes and above the ear, but not, but it feels like it's behind the ear because of masking. And when I realized that, I went back on the rig, I changed them for all of them, and it felt like a strike of genius. And actually, when I moved to Toon Boom, I just used that same technique for everything else.
So, like, I have an older version of Toon Boom, so I don't know how much similar it is to Harmony. I haven't tried Harmony, but like, how do you start like with puppets? Is there a specific like windows they have for it?
No, actually, you actually work with the timeline. Usually, you work with the default base. They have a tool called Master Controller, where you set your pieces with keyframes, and then it calculates how to move them across using basically some kind of gizmo that you move around. And that tool is really cool. I hate it. So what I did instead is that I set all my pieces and then just set an image switch and just switch those pieces using keyframes, which I thought was really effective. And it's part of it because I also learned from Flash. So I treated the image switch like a simple keyframe option, because in Flash you can just change the keyframe of your symbol as you want, and that's basically how you switch the pieces of the
So like when you switch pieces, that's like keyframes?
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the only thing though with image switch is that it treats the keyframe as an absolute value. So you might have a keyframe at 1 point or 1 value, and then a keyframe later, and it might average it as it goes. And for example, if you go from 0 to 2, it just will just increment. At some point, you just switch to the value of 1. That has nothing to do with anything, and it might feel weird. And there's a button to fix that to floor it. It sticks to 0 until it gets a different keyframe. And actually, you usually use that one for stop motion.
Technical talk.
Yep.
Really, the best way to learn is just to grab an existing rig of something and just look at it and play around with it.
And breaking it, especially breaking it, because once you push the limits, you it's just adding a character, just standing there, just opening your mouth. So.
The best way to learn is to play. Because we could talk for hours and hours about mechanics and shit.
And even in actual movie productions, you have rigs breaking, and you just break the rig in a way that you don't see it in camera, but you just move around and you see that the neck is about 4 meters long.
When you zoom out of the whole frame, you'll see a character in a really weird pose or stuff are flipping through the walls and stuff. Yeah.
The other question.
More questions, everybody?
You guys. This might take a lot of time to talk about. Maybe we can try and go quickly through it. But I was wondering, what are your guys' pre-production processes? So an idea comes into your head. So from the very start, idea to when you're ready to start animating. Because pre-production is a very important part of animation that we can talk about.
I can start. So one thing I did realize that really helps the pre-production of a project is if you hold it as you're working on the project you're currently working on. First of all, it saves you a lot of time because pre-production is a lot of time that you will stand waiting because you might have to contact voice actors or just try to figure out if you're lacking a piece. And as I realized, one of the key things is that a lot of my projects, it comes from lessons learned from the previous project, things that I realized my rigs were broken. When I was working in the beginning of Harmony, I started working on a pre-built model for Missing Out, and as I was working on it, I realized I discovered some things with me that I felt were very important that I could use on future projects. I realized at that point how to actually build a ponytail set, and I already had the first version as I was working at the beginning of Harmony and completing it, so I could actually jump on it. It's quite interesting because a lot of it is testing the technology. So for Missing Out, a lot of pre-products was trying to figure out a way to simplify the way to generate 3D backgrounds and characters. And the overall idea that I had was the stupidest idea ever. Was that since I couldn't figure out how to render them fast, because I was trying to do it the normal, I was just thinking of rendering a sphere cam of all the area around the tree around the Golden Library, and take the sphere cam and extrude, basically project it on the sphere, extrude it by the Z-dot to make some kind of camera projection of the background they could use. And if I have background elements that, for example, if you look at certain people and breaks, and I was thinking I will just bake the lighting directly on the object. So I worked for about a month trying to figure out the recipe to make it work until I realized it didn't work. I had to figure out some math to create a system to make the camera work between two Moon and Blender. And that pre-prod was in parallel working with the beginning of Harmony. And I felt a bit bad because with the beginning of Harmony I was using the old recipe while I was trying to figure out the new one. And I think I had a good idea of the things I still had to figure out how to learn. And it really helped to figure out what I have, because one of the problems I had with the project Thundercloud is that I was trying to figure out the pipeline as I was working with, and the project was very inconsistent. You had shots with 3D backgrounds and 2D ponies on top. You had some vector base where I tried to put some 2D shading on top to make it feel a bit like it, and it looked really wrong. I was trying to also write the script as I was going, because I was realizing I gave myself a computer to make the whole thing, and I was not getting everything right, so I was thinking working it out and get some things done without specific things, which really didn't help at all. So just now that I actually do the pre-project as I do the previous project, it really helps a lot.
We'll fix it in post is probably the worst thing you can tell anyone. Better to, if you can, because I know deadlines are a thing, they are a very real thing, but budget a good amount of your time. I would say try to budget about 25% at least of your time to just getting a good script down, especially if you're doing something by yourself. You'll thank yourself later. Just have a clear idea of what you want to do, and drawing things on paper like this, like start like picking your nose, you know, how do I want to show that? You know, just for a funny example, is like, you know, what do I want to say with it? And that's why pre-production is important. Is like, how do we say it? How's the best way to say it? And then when the technical problems come along, like the clipping masks and everything that we have to think about, sometimes that can be averted in storyboards. It's like, why doesn't she? Oh, it's just a character in silhouette. Oh, good idea. Sometimes you can come up with good solutions that way. Sometimes it's like later on down the pipeline and not in the beginning. But the beginning is your friend, and it's great to have a blueprint, because the hardest part is getting started. That's all I have to say.
I was going to leave with that, actually. The hardest part, is getting started with any production thing that you do. What I suggest people do when they're making animations is to get your idea drawn on paper. Because the sooner that happens, the easier it is to flow from a rough idea on paper to a more defined idea in a storyboarded segment. And then from there it just grows and grows. But the way I did my senior thesis film actually was I jumped from boards and then went to build a set in Blender in the 3D setting so that I knew where my cameras were. And I could set up the cameras and then draw the background on top of where those cameras were. So if you can make shortcuts like that, that'll help save time. But yeah, the main thing is with script comes drawing out the script. And once you get the script on paper, once you get the people that are working with you to see that certain idea on paper, then the project will.
So when it comes to pre-production, usually I just started doing the script and knowing the concept of how the video would look and what the video is about. So with Source Filmmaker, there is some limits when it comes to putting the lighting. But actually I do more scene builds than maps. Because I realize that scene builds actually looks more realistic and looks really epic. What I did with Squid Game, my goodness, that took me like around 3 months because of had to do with lowering the memories. Because when it comes to the software, there's some limit when it comes to the memory or how much of the virtual memory is on the machine. And it's quite limited, but it's about, I only had to go around trying to get like 8 ponies into one map, and having to get the animation with the lighting and also the scene, multiple scenes in one Source Filmmaker file. So I usually just overwriting using a console and just lower the bump map or anything that just lowers the memory with below 3000, which is the safest I can do. And also the rendering is. I have to just, whenever I use the depth of field and motion blur. So it really depends on your software, on your specs. If it can handle handle all these renders. And so I always have to prepare the script, and also there will be times that you have to do the reshoot when you know, wait, I'm not satisfied with this, let me just add a scene, or let me just remove a dialogue that I don't think that would fit in the scene. So there will be a time that you realize something in the scene, and then you like, okay, that's too much. Like, this person is saying too much in the script, so let me just remove that because it's not necessary. So don't always have to put too much up on it if you wanted to feel satisfied when it comes to the script, and also when animating the scene, depending on how long it is.
I guess I asked a question, but I should say something about it too. I guess I don't know really what else to say that hasn't been said. Pre-production is such an like important part of the project, especially if you're working. I know if you're just starting out in animation, you may just be doing it on your own, making your own animated projects. But when it comes to working with other people on a project, then pre-production really helps to get everyone on the same idea, the same page about what the project is like, what the tone of it is, what the story that's being told. If you have people like voice actors, musicians, sound engineers, like all that kind of thing on the project, then pre-production really helps to like isolate those ideas and make them like really like figure them out so that you don't get like halfway done with your animation and then realize, oh, actually I want it to be kind of a more comedic tone. Then you kind of have to go through and like reanimate everything, and it's just kind of a big hassle. So you want to get all that stuff like really figured out like at the beginning.
We only have like 7 minutes, so any other questions so far?
Hi. So it kind of feels like a lot of industries, especially animation, are kind of in a bit of a kind of uncertain place right now. You know, you have companies removing content from their streaming services, and you have Netflix canceling shows before they even air. How do you guys feel about the future of the animation industry? And why do you think so many people kind of don't really respect animation the same way they respect other art forms?
There's a lot of executives who don't really understand the appeal of animation or what it can do. They really think of it as a means to entertain kids. And the problem is that they also think of entertainment as just content. So when you get rid of products like that, they treat it as something that they can afford to lose because the fans don't really care because it will not really affect too much the line. Which is really a very bad approach. That a lot of movies are considered called classics, which were not successful in the box office, which ended up having a second life on the home video market, which became really popular. And when I think of home video market, I'm thinking right now what we have within the animation, what we have with YouTube. We have a lot of productions that we have going on right now done by very small people, and it's pretty good because animation doesn't have to be expensive. We can do a lot of storytelling with very limited means. We don't have to really, for example, if you look at any live action movie, all the stunts that they had to create, all the budget that wrote up to $300 million just to try to tell a story that a kid could have written. So the fact that we have those capabilities, storytelling right now with all our tools, I do agree that things will get worse before they get better, but I think the availability of all those tools that we have, the animation software we can kind of get for free. The fact that we have platforms like YouTube to finally spread our things, which YouTube is still a struggle because we have videos being set to made for kids. For example, missing out on the false censorship repair, and that didn't reach. But YouTube cannot do anything about word of mouth. They can't do anything about it. This is another round market where we could build. This is another round market that could be great because if we have so many productions that get bigger budgets, there's right now there's a guy who worked for I think 3 years in a row on his own animated movie, all by himself, and it's almost done. He just ran a Kickstarter to finish the production and hire some actors. And if this is a success and other people try to keep going with that, I have a lot of hopes with that. We have, for example, with Hell of a Bus, right now there's an animated series that has celebrity voice actors. It's quite incredible for animation done on YouTube, but it's, and they have their Patreon, they have lots of people working on that, it's incredible. So if it's successful and it's sustainable, I do hope there's copycats. By copycats, I mean people who want to keep the formula, but with their own ideas and stories, and they manage to make successful animated series online. With that, I do feel like we could be able to do something great out of it.
Just caveat on that. I also think, that any creative pursuit that you do is going to be tough. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of patience. It's not always the most profitable thing out of the gate. I mean, heck, I've been doing work for 10 years now, and I'm just starting to see like the fruits of my labor sometimes from things that I started off like when I was young. But it's something worth pursuing. It also takes some courage to pursue as well. So it's always going to be tough for animators. It's always going to be tough for writers, musicians, whatever creative pursue, especially if you want to make it like a lifetime career. It's going to be a tough world, but it's something worth pursuing, I would say. As being a creative person, I can say that. So.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of what Minty was saying, it's hard to talk about like the success of an industry without talking about money. Studios measure the success of their franchises and their projects off of how much money they make, like especially in theater releases. And if you look at recent like animated theatrical releases, like Spider-Verse or Puss in Boots, like really artistically driven and visually interesting movies, those were hugely successful movies and very well received by audiences and critics alike. And so I think studios are going to see that. I think the animation industry you can kind of look at it right now and see that it's kind of in a dark place and maybe it might be dwindling off a little bit. But I think studios are going to be coming back from that. So I think we can end that on kind of a hopeful note.
I'm not worried. I mean, there's always going to be work for me to do. There's always going to be somebody that's going to want to pay me for that work. So it's just finding the right time and place for me to do that. There's always going to be work out there. People are going to be people.
I know we're like out of time, but like, how do you get into that line of work? Like, where do you go to find that?
Post.
Just post?
Just post.
Just keep posting.
Just spam the heck out of your entire thing. Just get yourself like out there and get people to see you. And like a lot of it is luck. Like a lot of it, the right people have to see you first of all. But like to get that far, just post. Just make stuff. Just go ham on it, really. So yeah, no, I'm not worried. I'm a human. Us creators, we're human. We'll rise up against NFTs and AI art and whatever, right? We've got work to do anyway. So it's like, and we're always gonna have work anyway. So I'm not worried about it.
All right, it's already 6:30. I would like to say thank you so much, everyone, for attending this animation across the MLP fandom. It's been an honor to have you all, and I really hope that you're learning a lot of our panel. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. I love you all.
Buy my merch.
We have an SFM voting nostalgia happening tomorrow at 11:30. And that's it.
Also got fan animation Sunday at I don't remember the time. It's on the schedule.
Also the follow-up
building Equestria.
Sorry, I didn't step on that. Follow-up question at 4:30 tomorrow in this room.